Well, this turned out way better than I was originally anticipating. I wanted to make it nicer, but this is really nice. Those big V-shaped gaps are gone. My rails are reinforced. I've got the little brackets on here now for my gas struts. This just really turned out great. And where I heat shrink this, I just put a quick skim coat on there. Figured I'll just make it nice. It won't be perfect. Skim coat was all it needed. It is perfect. So all my tooling and my work just came out great. So no more oil canning. This rib ended up being just exactly where I wanted it. These never did move. It's funny, you can see a little bit of tooling work where somebody did some hammer and dolling on a couple of areas, but they just came out so smooth. So on this top side, I just put a skim coat over every inch. And then there was a couple low spots here and there. I sanded the whole thing after the first skim coat. It pointed out a few little low spots, and I just put in a little bit of filler in those low spots, and that's all it took. So all the hours that I spent dollying and putting a block behind it and my little pin hammer, it was well worth the time spent. This hood is just going to be fantastic. Going down the road, looking across this smooth and glossy finish, can be gorgeous. So I just got a little bit across the front of these. I put some filler on it, just left it rough so that when I get the hood back on, I'll be able to just kind of block those and tie them in to the grill. So this hood's finished, man. This is really coming along great. Most of this side of the car's finished. I've got a little bit of work to do on the fenders, and then I've got the other sides. Just coming along great. Really pleased. I pretty much have this fender finished, and it was really quite easy. It had been replaced. There was some welding on that needed to be cleaned up, and then I had to fill over that welding. So that fender is really, really nice. It's going to be a showpiece inside and out. Well, this one not so much. So I want to do the same thing with this. It's got a lot of welding I've got to do. I've got some stress cracks. There's 3 or 4 stress cracks. I split this area open so that I could have a nice drop off from the hood, because it was inset about 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch. Kind of a ugly looking overlapping of panels. So that needs to be welded. And as you can see, this is all surface rust. So, and I've got some oil canning to do. So I need to do some shrinking, and I've got a few more holes on here. I filled probably a dozen holes that somebody welded in this, and now I've still got a few more that I've got to weld over. So I need to start by getting all this rust off. And you can see I've been sanding on all this. I've been using a flap wheel to grind on it. I've been using a little die grinder to grind on it. Well, now I'm getting into areas that I just can't get into with this kind of equipment. So hand sanding all this is really a pain in the butt. So I've got some chemicals I'm going to use. It's going to just really make this simple, I hope. So what I've been using is KBS products. I'm going to be doing both sides of this fender well. I use the KBS Clean. It cleans off all the oils and greases, and it does a great job. It doesn't take a whole lot to really deep clean. And the nice thing about this product, if you would do a deep clean over bare metal like this, it's paint ready. And it even says 100% guaranteed that it's paint ready. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I've used it a lot. I love it. And then I will use the KBS Rust Blast. This just takes the rust completely out. If you've got a lot of scaled deep rust, it'll do that, but it's going to take a lot of time. But if you've got a lot of detail areas like this, it's worth it. And unless you're just going to sandblast. If you're going to media blast, sandblast, that's ideal for something like this. If you have access to that and you have an area that you don't mind making a big mess out of with all the dust and sanding and everything else that comes off of doing sandblasting or media blasting. So that's where this comes in. I've got a small area here. I want to do both sides of this. I did the inside of that one and I was really impressed with how quickly it cleans it and gets rid of all the rust. So let's go through that process. So for this outside area, I really don't need to do the clean. It's not really greasy. There's no oily residue here to clean off. So I'm going to just go straight to the rust blast. And the way the rust blast works, you just spray it on, keep it damp for about 30 minutes. So just keep going around and misting it and keep it wet. Now, these have pretty strong chemicals, so you'll want to use your gloves and your glasses. There's just enough of residue on here that it's just beating right off, so I'm just using a scouring pad to rub it in. And then once I've rubbed across it and it's worked it into the rust surface, now it's staying on. Okay, now I just need to let this set for about 5 minutes and then just periodically mist over it to keep it damp. And watch the clock. We need to be about 30 minutes total. And you can pretty well see when it gets to the point where it's satisfactory, or maybe you need to wait a little bit longer. Well, I got busy on some other items here in the garage, and so I just kept misting this and keeping it good and damp. It's been a little over an hour, so it looks like everything is rinsing off nicely. So at this point, it's just a matter of neutralizing the acids and just rinsing it all off. This KBS Rust Blast leaves a residue on the metal. It's like a zinc residue. Right now it has kind of a purplish look to it. But the nice thing about that coating that is left behind is it leaves it rust-proof in a way. If you do live in an area where you have high humidity, this is a great product for holding back the rust. Okay, now that it's dry, you can see it's kind of got this bluish haze to it, and that's the zinc coating. The rust, it still has a rusty look, but it's just the pits, and that sands out really nicely. And then I can put my primer right on top of that and then paint this body color that I'm planning on doing. And then as for the rest of these areas, I need to do some heat shrink and some more welding. But this is just awesome to have this done, especially here. There was a lot of surface rust in here. That's gone. There was surface rust in these areas. That's gone. All of these areas. So for an hour's worth of work that took me to do this, it would have probably taken me that long to get out a sandblaster and then clean up the mess. All right, now that I have that side done, I will continue doing it on this side as well. I will use the clean to clean off all the tar. There's a little road tar. There's some cleaning that needs to be done. A little bit of undercoating that's got some residue. And this does a great job cleaning all that off. And then I'll do the same thing like I did that on the outer with this rust blast and get this rust residue off. And the nice thing about that is the perfect base for the rust seal. And then I will put this rust seal on all of this inner, and you can brush this on. This just makes a beautiful seal, and it's a good hard seal that road debris, gasoline, oils, nothing hurts it. It's really good product. So I like to use this on fender wells as well as on the underbody, and then I'll spray on an undercoating or like a bed liner right on top of this. This will seal out any rust, and then you get that texture from an undercoating. I've just soaked it really good for about 5-10 minutes. Just kept it all really damp. Agitated it with a wire brush a few times, and then let it set for probably another 10 minutes, and then sprayed on another coat, agitated it really good, went over the whole thing with a wire brush. There was a few areas where it was still a few little hard, thick spots. I just took a regular chisel and just kind of lightly scraped those off. And I mean, what paint was left, it cleaned up right down to the paint. Pretty amazing. All the underside of this lip, I couldn't really get in there and with the chisel to get all of the undercoating off. Well, with letting it soak for a while with this, it just came right off. And the majority of it came off with just a wire brush. So yeah, it's probably spent 25-30 minutes to clean up the inside of this fender well, and it's ready now for rust blast. Well, then just kind of take out the rest of the rust. There's some of this rust. I mean, I did a really good job with the clean to clean off all the loose stuff, but this will just get deep into the other areas of rust that are here. Clean it up really good, and then it'll leave me a good zinc coating for the rust seal. Now again, this is KBS. So then this rust seal, you can brush it on, and then before it completely cures, and this takes a long time to cure, it's like 24-36 hours to completely cure. But once it tacks off, probably tacks off after about 4 or 5 hours, then I spray my undercoating on it. All right, I've got it all cleaned up, and I've got all the rust removed. There's some staining from the rust, but it's no longer any loose rust or deep pitted rust. All right, I'll get my welder out. The biggest area to weld is all along here. So I spent the day yesterday putting on my KBS rust seal. I put on 2 coats. First coat, just a medium coat, just get it all covered. Then a pretty heavy coat on the second coat. This stuff runs really easy, but it flows really well too. So the first coat you do have to go fairly on the light side. Just get a good coating on everything and try to smooth out your brush strokes. I just put it on with a brush. The second coat, you can put it on pretty heavy. You still have to watch for runs, but it doesn't run as much. And it's 2-3 hours you have to wait for the stuff to cure before you can go on to the second coat. 2 coats is plenty for what I'm doing on these inner fender wells. And then you have to wait about 6 hours to put on a top coat, because this doesn't like to be exposed to sun, UV lights. UV lights will discolor it. It's in a fender well, but it's really high gloss. Even though I ordered the semi-gloss, it's still too shiny for me. I don't want my fender wells being that shiny. So I sprayed a undercoating on this. I like to use a Raptor undercoating. I use Raptor bed liner in my truck, and I really like the way this goes on for in the fender wells. And I use 2 of these big cans, one for each fender well, and it goes on pretty heavy, so it sound deadens a bit too, and it'll protect against any rock chips. So what I'm doing now, these have cured. I am going around all the edges with a straight edge to make sure all of my fender well lips are perfectly straight. I want them to be smooth and contoured correctly where they are contoured and straight where they're supposed to be straight. This one looks fantastic. And here's a perfect example. Probably hard to pick up on the camera lens, but it's got a bow right here. It's about 1/8 of an inch off, so I need to just tap this out. And now it's created a wavy edge along here, and I need to fix